My name is Jake Thompson, and I fix cars for a living. Not glamorous, but honest work. At least, I thought honesty mattered until my wife came home that Tuesday night and shattered everything I believed about our marriage. The rain hammered against our apartment windows like angry fists. I sat at our small kitchen table, picking at leftover Chinese takeout while the television flickered in the background. The same routine for months now, me eating alone while Lisa worked late at her tech startup. Again. The door slammed at 11:15. Lisa stumbled in, her designer heels clicking against our cheap linoleum floor. Her makeup was smeared, her silk blouse wrinkled. She looked like she'd been through a tornado. "Hey," I said, not looking up from my cold lo mein. "Long day at the office?" She laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that made my skin crawl. "You could say that." She kicked off her heels and walked to the kitchen counter, pouring herself a glass of wine with shaking hands. "Jake, we need to talk." I set down my chopsticks and finally looked at her. Really looked. The lipstick smudge on her collar wasn't her shade. Too dark, too red. Her hair was messed up in a way that suggested hands running through it. Not her own hands. "Okay," I said. "Talk." She took a long sip of wine, then turned to face me with this weird smile, like she was about to deliver good news instead of what I knew was coming. "I had an affair tonight," she said, just like that. No build-up, no apology. "With Richard, my boss. And you know what? I'd do it again." I nodded slowly, like she'd just told me about the weather. Inside, something was shifting. Not breaking, that would come later. Just shifting, like tectonic plates before an earthquake. "Okay," I said again. Her smile faltered. "Okay, that's it? That's all you have to say?" I stood up, cleared my plate, and walked to the sink. Started washing dishes like it was any other night. "What do you want me to say, Lisa? You made your choice." I expected, I don't know, anger, tears, something. I dried my hands on the dish towel and turned around. "You want a reaction? Here's one. I'm going to bed. We'll figure this out tomorrow." But I wasn't going to bed. Not yet. As Lisa stumbled toward the bathroom, muttering about how I never cared about anything, I was already planning. See, people underestimate mechanics. They think we're just grease monkeys who turn wrenches. They don't realize we're problem solvers. We diagnose issues, find the broken parts, and fix them. Sometimes, though, the best fix is a complete teardown. I waited until I heard the shower running, then got to work. First, I went to the parking garage and popped the hood of Lisa's BMW, the car she insisted we lease even though we couldn't afford it. Pulled the battery cables loose and tucked them back just enough to look connected. She'd think it was a mechanical failure. Next, I changed our Wi-Fi password and unplugged the router. Lisa lived on her phone, constantly posting on social media, always connected. Without internet, she'd be lost. Then I gathered up all her charging cables and hid them in my toolbox. Small things, petty things, but effective. By the time she finished her shower, I was in bed, pretending to sleep. She slipped in beside me, reeking of wine and guilt and someone else's cologne. I lay there listening to her breathe, planning my next move. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The alarm went off at 6:30. I got up, made coffee for one, and sat at the kitchen table reading the newspaper like nothing had changed. Lisa emerged 20 minutes later, looking hungover and confused. "My phone's not charged," she said, plugging it into the wall. Nothing happened. She tried 3 different outlets. "What's wrong with the power?" "Power's fine," I said, not looking up from the sports section. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." She stormed around the apartment, growing more frustrated by the minute. No internet, no working chargers. And when she finally gave up and decided to leave for work, her car wouldn't start. I watched from the kitchen window as she stood in the parking garage, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling for a ride. Her face was red with anger and embarrassment. Perfect. When she finally came back upstairs, I was putting on my work uniform. "My car won't start," she said. "The internet's down. Nothing's working." I shrugged. "Sounds like a rough morning. I'd offer to help, but I've got to get to the shop." "Jake, what's going on?" I walked past her toward the door, then stopped. "You said you wanted power, Lisa. You wanted to make your own choices, so make them. But don't expect me to make things easy for you." The look on her face was worth everything. Confusion, anger, and just a hint of fear. She was starting to realize that her quiet, predictable husband might not be as harmless as she thought. "You can't do this," she said. "Do what? I haven't done anything wrong. Have you?" I left her standing there, powerless and isolated, exactly like she'd made me feel for months. But this was just the beginning. Lisa wanted to play games? Fine. I'd show her how a real player operates. The beauty of a small coastal city is that everyone knows everyone else's business. What Lisa didn't realize was that while she'd been climbing the corporate ladder, I'd been building relationships. Real ones. With real people who valued loyalty over ambition. My first stop was Murphy's Bar, 3 blocks from my auto shop. Danny Murphy had been my friend since high school, back when we were both nobody special. Now he owned the most popular dive bar in town, and more importantly, he knew every piece of gossip that flowed through this city. "Jake," Danny called out as I walked in. "You're early today. Everything all right?" I slid onto a bar stool and accepted the coffee he poured without being asked. "Lisa's having an affair with her boss." Danny's hand froze halfway to the coffee pot. "Aw, man, I'm sorry. You sure?" "She told me herself. Last night. Said she'd do it again." "What are you going to do?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots I'd taken while Lisa was in the shower. Text messages between her and Richard Morrison, her boss. Explicit stuff. Cruel stuff about me. Plans for secret meetings. "I'm going to return the favor," I said. Danny looked at the messages and whistled low. "This is nuclear, Jake. You sure you want to go down this road?" "She already went down it. I'm just following the path she made." By lunchtime, half the city knew about Lisa's affair. Not because I told them directly, I'm not that obvious. But Danny's bar was gossip central, and certain information has a way of spreading when you know the right people to share it with. I was under the hood of a pickup truck when my phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. "What did you do?" I smiled and kept working. 20 minutes later, another text. "People are staring at me. My coworkers are whispering. What did you tell them?" I wiped my hands on a rag and typed back. "Nothing. Why? Is there something I should have told them?" My phone rang immediately. Lisa's voice was shaking with rage. "You sent those messages to people, didn't you? You violated my privacy." "What messages?" I asked innocently. "The ones where you called me pathetic? Or the ones where you and Richard made fun of my job? You had no right." "I had every right. You're my wife. We're my wife. Those messages were about me." The line went quiet for a moment. Then, "This isn't over, Jake." "No," I agreed. "It's not." But I was already 3 steps ahead of her. See, while Lisa had been focused on her fancy tech job, I'd been paying attention to the real world. I knew Richard Morrison was married to a woman named Patricia, who volunteered at the animal shelter where I sometimes donated old car parts for their fundraising auctions. I knew he had a teenage daughter who went to the local high school with my nephew. I knew his business partner was a straight-laced guy who'd built their company on family values and community trust. Most importantly, I knew Richard's weakness, his reputation. He was one of those guys who needed everyone to think he was perfect. Successful businessman, devoted family man, pillar of the community. The kind of guy who'd fall apart if his image got tarnished. So I tarnished it. I didn't do anything illegal. Didn't hack any accounts or steal any information. I just made sure the right people saw the right things at the right time. A forwarded email here, a casual conversation there. The truth has a way of spreading all by itself once you give it a little push. By Wednesday afternoon, Richard's wife knew about the affair. By Thursday morning, his business partner was asking uncomfortable questions. By Friday, the local newspaper's gossip columnist had picked up the story. Lisa tried to fight back, of course. She posted on social media about how I was controlling and emotionally unavailable. She told her friends I was having a breakdown, that I couldn't handle her success, but I'd anticipated that too. I'd saved every text message, every email, every social media post where she'd bragged about her affair or mocked our marriage. When she tried to paint herself as the victim, I let the evidence speak for itself. The turning point came Saturday morning. I was at the shop, working on a vintage Mustang, when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. "Is this Jake Thompson?" The voice was female, older, refined. "Yes, ma'am." "This is Patricia Morrison, Richard's wife. I think we need to talk." We met at a coffee shop downtown. Patricia Morrison was nothing like I'd expected. She was elegant, composed, and absolutely furious, but not at me. "I want to thank you," she said, stirring her latte with precise movements, "for opening my eyes." "I'm sorry this happened to both of us," I said. "Are you? Because from what I've seen, you're handling this much better than I am." She was right. While she was devastated by her husband's betrayal, I was energized, focused. I'd found my purpose. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Divorce him. Take half of everything. Make sure he regrets the day he decided to cheat on me." She leaned forward. "The question is, what are you going to do?" I smiled. I'm going to make sure everyone in this city knows exactly who Richard Morrison really is, and who my wife really is. Good, Patricia said, because I have some information that might help you with that. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were financial records, email printouts, and what looked like a private investigator's report. Richard's been skimming money from the company, she explained. Nothing illegal, but definitely unethical. He's also been having affairs for years. Your wife isn't his first, and she won't be his last. I looked through the documents. This was better than I'd hoped. Why are you giving me this? Because men like Richard think they're untouchable. They think they can use people and throw them away without consequences. Her smile was sharp as a blade. I want to prove them wrong. As I walked back to my truck, envelope in hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not for my marriage. That was over. But for justice. For the satisfaction of watching two people who thought they were better than me learn exactly how wrong they were. My phone buzzed with another text from Lisa. We need to talk. This has gone too far. I typed back, you're right, but we're just getting started. Monday morning brought rain and revelation. I arrived at Morrison Tech's office building at 7:30, knowing Richard would be there early. Guys like him always showed up first, trying to prove their dedication, while their employees struggled with traffic and daycare drop-offs. His silver Porsche sat in the executive parking space like a monument to his ego. I'd seen him washing it in his driveway, treating it like a sacred object. Some men love their wives. Richard Morrison loved his car. I waited in my pickup truck, sipping coffee from a thermos and watching the building. At 8:15, Richard emerged with two other executives, all of them laughing at some joke, probably about their employees or their wives or both. As they approached the Porsche, I got out of my truck and walked over. Richard Morrison? He turned, his smile fading when he saw me. Do I know you? Jake Thompson, Lisa's husband. The other executive suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. Richard straightened his tie, trying to look confident. Look, Jake, I don't know what Lisa told you, but she told me everything. About the affair, about how you two laugh at me, about how you think I'm too stupid to figure it out. We never said that. I pulled out my phone and played one of Lisa's voicemails. Her voice, clear as day. Richard thinks Jake's too dumb to catch on. He says mechanics don't have the brains for real detective work. Richard's face went pale. Jake, listen. No, you listen. I stepped closer, close enough that he had to look up at me. I'm not a big man, but I'm bigger than him, and years of physical work had made me strong. You want to mess with my wife? Fine. She made that choice. But don't you ever disrespect me again? I placed my hand on the hood of his Porsche, running my fingers along the pristine paint job. Nice car, I said. Must have cost more than I make in a year. Jake, please don't... Don't what? I'm just admiring your ride. I pressed harder, letting my wedding ring scrape against the metal. You know what I learned in 20 years of fixing cars? Everything breaks eventually. Everything. I stepped back, leaving a thin scratch in the paint. Richard stared at it like I'd wounded a family member. You're crazy, he whispered. No, I'm motivated. There's a difference. I walked back to my truck and drove away, leaving him standing in the rain, staring at his damaged car. It was a small scratch, barely visible unless you knew where to look. But Richard would see it every time he got in that car. He'd remember this moment, and he'd remember that I wasn't as harmless as he thought. The real escalation came that afternoon. I was at the shop, working on brake pads, when Tommy Reeves burst through the door. Tommy worked for me part-time, mostly handling the books and ordering parts. Jake, you need to see this. He held up his phone, showing me a video on social media. It was Lisa, standing in what looked like a hotel room, talking directly to the camera. I want everyone to know the truth about my husband, she was saying. Jake Thompson is an abusive, controlling man who's been threatening me and my coworkers. He's dangerous, and I'm afraid of what he might do next. I watched the whole thing twice, my anger building with each word. She was good. I had to give her that. Tears at just the right moments. Voice shaking with just the right amount of fear. Anyone who didn't know the real story would believe every word. That's not true, is it, Jake? Tommy asked. Not a word of it. But I knew damage was done. In the age of social media, accusations spread faster than truth. By evening, half the city would think I was some kind of monster. Time to change the narrative. I called Patricia Morrison. I need that private investigator's report. All of it. Are you sure? Some of it's pretty ugly. I'm sure. We met at Murphy's bar an hour later. Patricia had brought everything. photos, financial records, even hotel receipts. Richard's affairs went back 5 years, involving at least 6 different women. He had a pattern: find vulnerable employees, promise them promotions, use them for a few months, then move on to the next victim. Lisa's just the latest, Patricia explained. But she might be the last if we play this right. What do you mean? Richard's business partner, David Chen, is a good man. Family-oriented, honest. If he knew what Richard was really like, he'd dissolve the partnership. Richard would lose everything. I studied the documents. And Lisa? Would lose her job, her reputation, her future in this industry. Richard won't protect her if his own survival is at stake. It was perfect. Cruel, but perfect. The next morning, I created an anonymous email account and sent David Chen everything. Photos, financial records, the works. Then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. By noon, Richard was calling me. "You bastard," he said. "You sent those files to David." "I don't know what you're talking about." "David's calling an emergency board meeting. He wants me out of the company." "Sounds like a business problem. You should probably focus on that instead of sleeping with other men's wives." "This isn't over, Jake." "You're right. It's not." But I was already planning the next phase. See, Patricia had given me more than just evidence of Richard's affairs. She'd given me his schedule, his habits, his weaknesses, and I intended to use every single one. That evening, I followed Richard to his regular gym. He worked out every Tuesday and Thursday, always alone, always trying to maintain the physique that helped him attract younger women. I waited until he finished his workout and headed to the parking garage. "Richard," he spun around, his gym bag falling from his shoulder. "Stay away from me, Jake. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. Tell them what? That I'm standing in a public parking garage?" I walked closer, noting how he backed against his car. "You know what I realized today," I said. "You're not nearly as smart as you think you are. All those affairs, all that stolen money, all those lies, and you never thought anyone would catch you." "I never stole anything." "No? Then what do you call taking company money for personal trips, using business accounts for hotel rooms where you cheated on your wife?" His face crumpled. "David showed you the books." "David showed me everything." "You're finished, Richard. Your marriage, your business, your reputation, all of it's gone. What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to admit what you did. And I want you to face the consequences like a man instead of hiding behind lawyers and lies." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Richard, next time you park this car, you might want to check your tires. Parking garages can be dangerous places." I didn't actually damage his tires. Didn't need to. The threat was enough. As I walked away, I could hear him frantically checking his Porsche, looking for sabotage that wasn't there. Fear, I was learning, was more powerful than actual damage. It lasted longer, hurt deeper, and cost nothing to inflict. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Richard told me what you did. You're going to regret this." I typed back, "The only thing I regret is trusting you. But don't worry, I won't make that mistake again." The war was escalating, just like I wanted. But I was ready for whatever came next. After all, I'd been underestimated my whole life. Time to show everyone what a mistake that was. The showdown came sooner than I expected. Lisa called me Wednesday morning, her voice tight with desperation. "Jake, we need to meet. Tonight. The old waterfront industrial park. Come alone." "Why there?" "Because we need to end this. All of it. Richard's business is collapsing. His wife left him. People won't stop staring at me. This has gone too far." I almost laughed. "You started this, Lisa. You wanted excitement, adventure, a life bigger than what we had. Well, congratulations. You got it. Please, Jake. One conversation. Let me explain everything." I knew it was a trap. Lisa wasn't the type to surrender, especially not in some dramatic waterfront meeting, but I was curious to see what she had planned. "Fine. 8 o'clock. The industrial park sat on the edge of the harbor, a collection of abandoned warehouses and empty lots that the city kept promising to redevelop. It was the perfect place for a private conversation or an ambush. I arrived early, parking my truck behind a rusted shipping container where it couldn't be seen from the main road. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with fog rolling in from the ocean. Perfect atmosphere for whatever Lisa had in mind. She was already there when I walked onto the main loading dock, standing under a flickering streetlight like some kind of noir movie heroine. She wasn't alone. Richard stood beside her, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Behind them, in the shadows, I could make out 2 more figures. "Jake," Lisa called out. "Thank you for coming." I stopped about 20 feet away, keeping my distance. Nice welcoming committee. What is this? An intervention? This is us trying to find a solution that works for everyone, Richard said. Really? And what solution is that? Lisa stepped forward. We'll pay you. $50,000. Cash. All you have to do is stop. No more emails, no more harassment, no more sabotage. 50,000? I whistled. That's a lot of money. Where'd you get it? That's not important. Sure it is. See, I know Richard's business is falling apart. His partner froze all the accounts pending an audit. His wife took half of everything in the divorce. So where exactly did $50,000 come from? The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. You stole it, I said. From the company. Before David could lock you out completely. Richard's face confirmed my guess. It's not stealing. It's my money. I built that company. With your partner's investment, using other people's work, and now you're using stolen money to try to buy your way out of the mess you made. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Smile, everyone. I'm recording this whole conversation. The two figures in the shadows stepped forward. I recognized one of them, Lisa's friend Monica, the social media influencer who'd been covering for the affair. The other was a guy I didn't know, probably muscle Richard had hired. Turn off the phone, Jake, Monica said. We're not here to hurt you. We just want to make a deal. The only deal I'm interested in is the truth. Lisa cheated. Richard's a predator who's been using his position to manipulate women for years, and all of you helped cover it up. Nobody's going to believe you, Lisa said. Not after what I posted online. People think you're dangerous, unstable. They'll think this recording is fake. She was probably right. But I'd learned something important over the past week. The truth doesn't always win, but it doesn't have to. Sometimes just threatening to reveal it is enough. Maybe, I said. But are you willing to bet your futures on it? I started walking toward them, still holding up my phone. See, here's what I think happened. Richard realized his business was finished, so he grabbed whatever money he could and convinced you three to help him disappear. New identities, new city, new life, except you needed me to stop digging first. You're paranoid, Richard said, but his voice was shaking. Am I? Then why are there suitcases in your car? Why is Monica's social media suddenly full of posts about new adventures and fresh starts? Why did Lisa withdraw all the money from our joint account yesterday? I was guessing about most of it, but their faces told me I was close to the truth. You can't prove anything, Lisa said. I don't have to. I just have to ask the right questions to the right people, like David Chen, or the FBI agents who are probably already investigating Richard's financial irregularities, or the IRS, who love cases involving stolen business funds. The fog was getting thicker, making the whole scene feel like something out of a dream. But this was real. These people had tried to destroy my life, and now they were desperate enough to try bribery and intimidation. Last chance, Jake, the muscle guy said, stepping forward. Take the money and walk away. Or what? You'll hurt me in front of witnesses while I'm recording everything? I held up my other hand, showing a second phone. Live streaming to social media. Smile for your audience, everyone. That was a lie, but they didn't know it. In the age of viral videos and instant communication, the threat of exposure was more powerful than actual violence. Richard broke first. This is insane. I'm leaving. He turned toward the parking area, but I called after him. Go ahead, run. But you'll never be safe. Every new city, every new job, every new relationship, I'll be there. Sending emails, making phone calls, asking questions. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. He stopped walking. Unless, I continued, you do the right thing. Confess. Return the money. Face the consequences like an adult. And if we do that? Lisa asked. You'll leave us alone? I'll consider it. The standoff lasted another 10 minutes. 4 people who'd thought they were smarter than everyone else, realizing they'd been outmaneuvered by a simple mechanic who understood something they didn't. Reputation is everything, and once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. In the end, they didn't take the $50,000 and run. They couldn't. I'd made sure too many people were watching, asking questions, demanding answers. The smart play was surrender, and eventually, even they figured that out. Richard returned the stolen money and resigned from the company. Lisa lost her job and her social media following. Monica's influencer career collapsed when her association with the scandal went viral. As for me, I went back to fixing cars and rebuilding my life, but I kept all the evidence, all the recordings, all the proof of what they'd tried to do, insurance in case any of them ever forgot the lesson I'd taught them. The truth might not always win, but it never stops fighting, and sometimes that's enough. 3 weeks after the waterfront meeting, I thought it was over. Richard had disappeared from town, reportedly moving to another state to start fresh. Lisa had moved out of our apartment and was staying with Monica while looking for work. The gossip mill had moved on to other scandals. I was wrong. The attack came on a Saturday morning. I arrived at my shop to find the front window smashed, equipment destroyed, and graffiti spray-painted across the walls. "Wife beater," in red letters, visible from the street. Tommy was already there, sweeping up glass. "I'm sorry, Jake. I called the police, but they said without witnesses or security footage." I surveyed the damage. Thousands of dollars in tools and equipment ruined. My reputation, already fragile from Lisa's social media campaign, would take another hit. Customers would see that graffiti and wonder if maybe she'd been telling the truth. "It was them," I said. "Lisa, Richard, whoever they hired." "Can you prove it?" I couldn't. That was the beauty of their plan. Create just enough doubt, just enough damage to make me back down. But they'd made one mistake. They'd assumed I was fighting alone. I called Patricia Morrison. "I need a favor." "What kind of favor?" "The kind that ends this permanently." We met at her lawyer's office that afternoon. Patricia had been busy since our last conversation, using her divorce proceedings to dig deeper into Richard's business practices. What she'd found was worse than either of us had imagined. "He wasn't just skimming money," she explained, spreading documents across the conference table. "He was running a systematic harassment operation, using company resources to investigate employees' personal lives, then using that information to manipulate them." The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Janet Pierce, leaned forward. "This goes beyond adultery or even theft. This is criminal conspiracy, possibly racketeering." I studied the papers. Email threads, financial records, even private investigator reports that Richard had commissioned on his own employees. It painted a picture of a man who'd built his success on manipulation and intimidation. "There's more," Patricia said. "Richard's been in contact with some unsavory people, the kind who specialize in making problems disappear." She showed me surveillance photos that her private investigator had taken. Richard meeting with known criminals, exchanging envelopes, shaking hands in dark parking lots. "He hired someone to vandalize your shop," Janet said. "We can prove it. Then let's prove it publicly." The plan was simple but devastating. We'd compile everything into a comprehensive dossier and release it simultaneously to law enforcement, local media, and social media. Richard's crimes, Lisa's complicity, Monica's role in the cover-up, all of it exposed at once. But I wanted something more, something personal. "There's going to be a community festival next weekend," I told them. "Downtown, on Main Street, hundreds of people, local news coverage, the works." "What are you thinking?" Patricia asked. "I'm thinking it's time for a public confession." The festival was perfect. Local businesses set up booths, families brought their children, and a small stage hosted various performers throughout the day. I'd volunteered to help with the sound system, which gave me access to the microphone and speakers. Lisa was there, of course. She'd been trying to rebuild her image by volunteering for community events, playing the role of the wronged wife who was bravely moving on with her life. She even brought Monica, both of them dressed in their best, respectable citizen outfits. Richard had supposedly left town, but I knew better. Patricia's investigator had spotted him at a motel on the outskirts of the city. He was waiting, probably planning some kind of final move against me. At 2 o'clock, during the busiest part of the festival, I took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment." The crowd quieted, thinking I was about to introduce the next performer. "My name is Jake Thompson. Some of you know me as the guy who runs Thompson's auto repair. Others might know me as the man whose wife had an affair with her boss." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lisa, standing near the front, went pale. "I want to tell you a story," I continued, "about lies, manipulation, and what happens when people think they're above consequences." I told them everything. The affair, the cover-up, the attempts at intimidation. I showed them printed copies of the evidence, text messages, financial records, even photos of my vandalized shop. "Richard Morrison didn't just cheat with my wife," I said. "He's been systematically abusing his position of power for years, using company resources to harass and manipulate employees. He stole money from his business partner, and when that wasn't enough, he hired criminals to try to silence me." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't stay buried. It finds a way to surface, no matter how many lies you pile on top of it. I gestured toward the edge of the crowd, where 2 police officers were quietly positioning themselves near Lisa and Monica. "The FBI is currently investigating Richard Morrison for wire fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. Warrants have been issued for his arrest and the arrest of his accomplices. Lisa tried to run. She actually turned and pushed through the crowd, but the officers were ready. They caught her before she made it 10 feet. Monica was smarter. She stood perfectly still, hands visible, cooperating as they placed her in handcuffs. "The truth," I said into the microphone, "is that sometimes the good guys do win. Sometimes justice does prevail. And sometimes people who think they're untouchable learn exactly how wrong they are." The crowd erupted in applause, not because they enjoyed seeing people arrested, but because they recognized justice when they saw it. Richard was captured that evening at the motel, along with the men he'd hired to intimidate me. The evidence Patricia and I had compiled was overwhelming. Federal charges, state charges, civil lawsuits. His life as he'd known it was over. Lisa and Monica were released on bail, but their reputations were destroyed. The social media posts, the community humiliation, the criminal charges, they'd never recover from it. As for me, I stood on that stage, looking out at hundreds of faces, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: vindication. "They wanted a villain," I said into the microphone, my final words before walking off the stage. "I gave them justice instead." The festival continued around me, families enjoying the sunshine, children playing games, life going on as it should, but I knew that this moment, this public reckoning, would be remembered long after the decorations were taken down and the booths were packed away. I'd started this fight as a betrayed husband seeking revenge. I was ending it as a man who'd stood up to corruption and won. Not through violence or illegal schemes, but through patience, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to the truth. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it's everything.